The story kicks off in Labyrinth City, a place named for its layout because urban planning was clearly a foreign concept here. It's the land of opportunity, provided those opportunities include high-speed death or a lifetime of trauma for anyone brave enough to live there. Enter Nick, a local swordsman who spends his days grinding with his adventuring crew. Nick's our main guy, and he's got a girlfriend and a dream to see his squad reach the top tier of the rankings. But he's clueless that his group is about to ghost him, led by Argus, a guy Nick basically viewed as a father figure, talk about some major trust issues. To make things worse, his girlfriend dumps him too. Turns out she was just using him as a human ATM, and the betrayal sends him into a downward spiral where he tries to fix his broken soul by becoming a hardcore simp for a teen idol named Agate. To figure out how he ended up glowing stick deep in an idol concert, we've got to rewind the clock a bit. Nick is basically a walking void of sadness at this point. He's still trying to process why Argus kicked him out of the adventurer club like yesterday's trash. Supposedly, Argus thought Nick lacked the vibes or the spirit required to be a real adventurer. The old man also claimed Nick got a big head and started bossing everyone around like he owned the place, which apparently really got under his skin. So he gave Nick the ultimate boot. While Nick is busy having a midlife crisis on a bench, a random girl pops up trying to fix his mood. He tells her to beat it, but she's persistent, desperate for some attention or maybe just a new customer. She hands him a ticket for some idol show, claiming she's a rookie, but she's putting in that 110% effort. A confused Nick asks why she's even talking to him, and she hits him with the "it's my job to cheer up losers" routine. She ditches the ticket and her umbrella with him and walks off, feeling like she just won a humanitarian award or something. Nick swears he's not going to some cutesy song and dance show, but she shouts back that she'll be waiting for him anyway. He stares at the ticket, his brain does a quick flip, and he decides why not. And that's how he finds himself front row for Agate's performance. Surprisingly, he doesn't hate it. In fact, he's kind of into it. He even goes full fanboy and buys all the merch. The problem is he spends his lunch money on glow sticks and realizes he's broke and hungry the second he gets home. Next morning, he hits up the local hub where all the noobs look for a new squad. His plan is to actually work a real job so he can keep funding his agate addiction. He tries to strike up a convo with a kid trying to look cool. But some older dude swoops in, and the kid loses interest faster than a TikTok trend, leaving Nick looking like a total creep. After failing all day, he hits a dive bar to eat some mystery meat, watching other people celebrate their new jobs while he wallows in his own failure. Then 3 random weirdos show up and invade his personal space at the table. It's awkward because nobody is talking, and they're acting like they've never met a human before. He spots a girl with a staff topped with a funky rock and pegs her for a mage immediately. He's pretty sure she's a magic user or just has weird taste in sticks. The second guy is a cleric who's absolutely wasted and smells like a cheap perfume shop, which Nick assumes means he's been making some bad life choices. The third one is a girl who also happens to be a dragon. When the beer arrives, Nick decides to drink to his pathetic past and his gold-digging ex-girlfriend all by his lonesome. He's taking it all in, feeling the sting of life. He's convinced he's done with friends forever because people are basically garbage and can't be trusted. He even starts thinking Argus was right about him being a loser, so he chugs his beer, and miraculously, the other 3 losers at the table do the exact same thing. They all finish their drinks and collectively announce that they're done trusting people forever. Scene ends, cue the sad music. Now the anime dives into the backstory of our resident magic user, Tiana. Her life used to be pretty chill. She spent her days grinding her magic skills while everyone watched in awe. People were calling her the goat of the sorcery school, which she totally leaned into. She's feeling herself, thinking she's absolutely peaked in life with her shiny new spells. She rolls up to a restaurant looking for her guy, Alex, like she's the main character. But the host gives her the cold shoulder. She goes in anyway because boundaries aren't her thing. She finds Alex, who's looking a bit too pretty for his own good. Some guy named Link is there too, but Tiana ignores him and brags to Alex about her cool new lightning powers. Alex isn't impressed and mentions some nasty rumors he's heard about her social life. Link chimes in, saying she's only getting good grades because she's cozying up to the professors. She tells them to shut it and show some respect. But Alex is on a roll, tearing her down because he's embarrassed by the high school drama. Then he hits her with the "it's over" speech. They were only engaged for the family business anyway, and now her dad is basically disowning her over the drama. She gets the boot from the family and has to pack her bags and scram. She lands in a crappy new apartment and realizes she's totally alone, needing a new crew of magic nerds to take her in so she can pay the bills. But every group says no because she doesn't have a recommendation letter. She keeps pushing though. She even tries to be a sidekick for a warrior but gets rejected again. It's just a non-stop parade of no everywhere she goes. On her way home, she sees a horse racing ad and decides to gamble her problems away, actually winning once. Then she goes all in like a true degenerate and loses every single cent she has. She's depressed and broke, a classic combo. She wanders the streets looking for any scrap of hope or a job that doesn't suck. She finds a flyer for adventurers and thinks she might have a shot at a comeback. A guy approaches her to join his squad, but things go south fast. She looks at him with such a death stare that the poor guy runs for his life. Tiana realizes she's got a resting, miserable face that's scaring the locals. She tries to force a smile, and another guy tries to chat her up. But the smile is even scarier, and he bolts too. And that's how she ends up at the bar, where Nick is currently drowning his sorrows. Next up, we get the tragic backstory of Zen the cleric, who lived in a holy city dedicated to some god named Medla, where he was the local favorite because he was apparently too nice for his own good, and a girl named Mural was always bringing him herbs. He's working late one night when she shows up with another delivery. She grabs his hand and asks if he's catching feelings for her. But he hits her with the "you're just a kid" line, which is never a great move. He also mentions he's a priest who took a vow of celibacy, so a relationship is a total no-go. Mural is visibly ticked off by the rejection. She says she hates his guts and runs off crying like a drama queen. But she's not just sad, she's vengeful and decides to ruin his entire life for the rejection. A few days later, Zen is talking about a promotion to high priest, feeling pretty good about himself. Then the cops show up out of nowhere to drag him away in handcuffs. Mural's revenge plot worked perfectly. She told everyone Zen was a creep who used her for his own sick pleasure, and then tried to pay her off with a single pathetic coin. Zen is crushed because he's actually innocent, but the system doesn't care about his feelings. They chuck him in a cell for 3 months and then kick him out of the city for good. He goes to see an old lady friend who has no idea about the scandal, and she lets him crash at her place for the night. They have a very friendly encounter that night to help him forget his troubles. The next morning, she feeds him and tells him to go to Labyrinth City to become an adventurer. He apparently spilled his guts to her about the whole mess. She tells him he's still young and needs to start over far away from the church drama. She also gives him some gear he left behind or maybe borrowed during their wild night. There's some high-end items that'll help him boost his healing powers or whatever. So Zen quits the priest life and decides to embrace his inner degenerate. That's why he's now a drunk who spends his time with ladies of the night and ended up at the bar with our other miserable friends. Nick is listening to all this and thinks his story is totally fake or just the ramblings of a guy who's had way too many shots. But Zen is dead serious and claims he's going to go slay the Demon King after he finishes his drink. Nick ignores the drunk talk and looks at the dragon girl, telling her she's next in the trauma circle. She rambles about someone she actually cared about stabbing her in the back and stealing her most prized possession. But since she's 3 sheets to the wind, she loses her train of thought and everyone just goes back to aggressive drinking. The next morning, the 4 of them wake up at Tiana's place with zero memory of how they crashed there. Since they're basically strangers with hangovers, Tiana tells them all to get lost immediately. With no other move, they shuffle out the door, offering some weak apologies. But before they can vanish into the morning mist, Nick stops them and starts dropping some inspirational lines he recycled from that idle girl, trying his best to sound like he hasn't completely given up on life. A light bulb goes off in his head that maybe these 4 disasters should actually team up. Cut to the next scene where the squad meets up to make this tragedy official. They hit the registration desk where the clerk actually remembers Nick from his previous failed life. She recalls him being a member of a much better group once. She also points out that they've got a survivor among them who somehow didn't die in a rank C dungeon. She's talking about Curran, our resident dragon girl. Then comes the big question, what's the name of this circus? Nick takes the survivor comment and runs with it, naming the team the survivors to make it sound intentional. And just like that, Nick, Curran, Tiana, and Zen are officially a thing. At their first meeting, Nick lays down 3 laws of the land to keep them from killing each other before the monsters do. Law number 1, don't stick your nose into anyone else's personal baggage or trauma. Second, don't blow the group's cash on stupid stuff. And third, everyone better show up alive after every mission. Nick announces he'll be the group's accountant, with Tiana keeping a suspicious eye on the books. Curran's job is to find a secure chest, though she complains that Nick is probably just setting himself up for a payday. Then they tackle the elephant in the room, the fact that they don't trust each other at all. It's hard to trust people when you just met them in a drunken stupor, but they agree to bury their crappy pasts and try to build something that isn't a complete disaster. The meeting breaks and they head to a level G dungeon called the Viscous Aqueduct, basically the kiddie pool for adventurers. They've got to clear a couple more of these low-rent spots before the guild lets them play with the big boys. Nick tells the crew this'll be a cakewalk, since rank G spots are basically just tutorial levels for people who don't know which end of the sword to hold. They chat while they walk until they run into a slime, their very first victim. Nick explains that even though these things look like sentient jello, they'll eat literally anything they touch. If they eat enough, they get big enough to snack on cows and ruin a farmer's entire week. But Nick shows them that taking one out is actually pretty simple. You just have to yank out the core gem hidden in their squishy bodies. The group keeps moving, wondering what kind of genius thought creating man-eating slime was a good idea. While they're hunting, someone asks why these blobs even bother attacking people. Tiana says humans tried making monster snacks to foster peace, but as usual, humanity screwed it up and made them aggressive instead. Zen feels a bit weird about killing things that don't even know they're being jerks. Nick tells them to stay focused, but Tiana gets ambushed while she's talking, loses her cool and tries to blast the slime. But her aim is trash and she ends up blasting Curran instead. Talk about a great start. The two start bickering immediately, with Curran feeling totally betrayed. She makes it clear that if she gets hit by friendly fire again, someone's going to pay. They keep the slime hunt going, even though the girls are clearly still ready to swing at each other. Eventually, they reach the end of the line, and Nick tells them to keep their heads on a swivel. Suddenly, they spot something huge up ahead. A giant slime has entered the chat. Nick realizes this is the big boss of the aqueduct and tells everyone to actually use their brains for once. Naturally, Tiana ignores him and charges in headfirst, which is becoming a recurring theme. She unleashes a massive spell that turns the monster into a puddle of goo. Nobody dies, luckily, and they grab the boss's gem before heading out to scrub off the slime. While they're doing laundry, Nick decides it's time to actually figure out who's good at what. He starts by admitting he's a solid fighter and scout, but he's absolutely useless when it comes to magic or healing. And he's not exactly a pro with the heavy weapons either. He tells the others to spill their stats so they don't accidentally expect a miracle from someone who can't deliver. They've all been burned before, so they know exactly how it feels to be let down. Trust is still a pretty big ask for this group of rejects. Zen talks about his healing, and Tiana actually swallows her pride and apologizes to Curran for the friendly fire. Tiana admits she's a glass cannon, great at magic, but if something gets close to her, she's basically toast. Everyone shares their baggage and their buffs, and they wrap up the campfire chat. Then it's off to the goblin forest, where Nick warns them that one goblin is a joke, but a whole squad of them is a nightmare. They farm a few goblins for their gems without breaking a sweat. Tiana says she can smell magic in the air and starts scanning the woods for more targets. Nick is impressed she can do that high-level stuff, but then Tiana drops some bad news. She senses something way too strong hiding with the goblins, which makes Nick rethink their life choices. Nick figures it's either an ogre or a goblin that's been hitting the gym way too hard. He asks Tiana for a second opinion, and she confirms they're likely in for a real fight. Nick tells the crew they can actually win this, but only if they don't screw up the teamwork. If they don't sync up, they're all going to end up as goblin snacks. So he decides the only way out is through, and they prep for the encounter. Nick points out that magic isn't going to do much against these things, so it's going to be up to him and Curran to do the heavy lifting. Tiana and Zen are on distraction duty, while Curran gets the main role because she's the only one with enough muscle to pierce that monster's hide. They find the beast, and Curran charges in exactly like Nick told her to, looking like a total pro. She leads the way while Nick covers her 6, while Zen and Tiana hang back to provide support, and makes sure nobody gets snuck up on. Nick keeps the small fry busy, while Curran charges up a fire spell on her blade like she's in a Michael Bay movie. She leaps into the air and comes down like a meteor, deleting the ogre from existence in one shot. After the dust settles, she starts harvesting goblin horns like it's her day job. She stops to check on a metal trinket she's been hiding in her pocket. But Nick accidentally bumps into her because he's got the spatial awareness of a toddler. She drops the thing and it shatters into pieces on the ground. Suddenly, we jump back in time to Curran waking up in a cave, looking like she's seen better days. We don't know how she got there yet, but before the cave incident, we see her walking through a market, thinking about her sacred duty as a dragonborn. Apparently, she's supposed to be a human bodyguard or something equally noble. She spots a jewelry stand and gets mesmerized by a shiny necklace. She decides she absolutely needs it in her life. But she's short on cash, so she heads off to work to earn the difference. The shopkeeper, being a total creep, decides to scam her instead of just waiting. He calls her back and accuses her of breaking the necklace. He claims it's ruined, and now she has to buy it because nobody else will. Curran is baffled because she didn't even touch the thing, or so she thought. The seller gets fake mad and tells her to stop lying to his face. He pretends to be the nice guy and offers her a deal. He says she can buy it for half price, or he can just call the cops and let them handle the thief. Then a guy named Kallios shows up, and the whole mood of the market shifts. Kallios wants to see the damaged goods, while the seller keeps up his little act. He pays for the necklace and gives it to Curran, telling her to try and scratch it on purpose. She does it, and the thing breaks instantly, proving it was just a cheap piece of junk all along. Kallios calls out the scammer for selling fake trash to innocent people. Naturally, the guy is fuming because his scam just got busted. Kallios snatched the jewelry back and made it clear that Curran had been played by the oldest trick in the book. Kallios basically told the merchant to cough up the real necklace and the cash unless he wanted to spend his afternoon in a courtroom. With 0 moves left, the scammer folded. Fast forward and they're back in the dungeon. Curran is back to doing all the heavy lifting like a total boss, while her squad stands around giving her participation trophies and loud cheers. Even Kallios joins the fan club, telling her how proud he is, which makes her feel like she actually belongs. They keep grinding through the halls until they reach the final boss's door. Inside is a massive snake camping out in a ceramic pot that's conveniently immune to magic. Because of that, everyone has to actually pay attention and try not to get eaten. While they're all on high alert, Kallios sends Curran in first since it's a physical brawl, promising the team will back her up if things get messy. She charges in and whacks the pot with everything she's got, which just makes the snake come out very, very angry. The rest of the crew tries to help, but the snake goes full tilt and starts turning Curran into a human pretzel. She's screaming for Kallios to do something, but the snake just farts out some toxic gas that drains her health bar to 0 and leaves her face down on the floor. Kallios and his buddies just shrug, loot all the treasures from the snake, and leave Curran for dead without a second thought. Somehow, using pure spite, she gathers her last 2 brain cells of energy and manages to stand up. That's when it hits her. Kallios stole her family heirloom, the Dragon Jewel, a relic that's basically a high-tier legendary item. A gift from Dragon Tino. The guy spent an entire year crafting that thing and trusted Curran to keep it safe, but now she's back at the inn empty-handed. She finds out Kallios faked his own death just to make his clean getaway. He cleaned out her room and vanished, leaving her heart more broken than a cheap smartphone screen. Still, she's persistent and starts checking every dark alley and street corner for him. She asks around, but nobody knows where the coward went. He's basically a ghost at this point. Eventually, she wanders into a restaurant, hoping to eat her feelings away. There she spots a solo knight who looks way cooler than anyone she's ever met. She'd heard he was so cracked at the game that his group let him solo dungeons for fun. The guy definitely notices he has a dragon girl stalker, but he plays it cool while she follows him around like a lost puppy all day. She tracks him through the same streets until they both end up at another diner. They finally talk, mostly because he's hammered enough to be social with a complete stranger. It's a short convo. She thanks him for not being a jerk, and then they part ways. She never sees him again and realized she's broke, homeless, and probably should have prioritized her finances. And that's the depressing story of how she ended up at the same bar as Nick and the other rejects on that one fateful night. With that trauma dump finished, we are back to following Nick around. He's at a jewelry shop, window shopping like he's actually got money, trying to find a replacement for the necklace he broke. He just wants to find something that doesn't look like it came out of a gumball machine for Karin. But the more he looks, the more he realizes her original piece was one of a kind. He's also confused why she didn't just punch him in the face when he shattered her treasure. While he's overthinking things, Agate shows up and acts like they're old pals. They head to a park to have a little heart-to-heart. Under some trees, Nick spills the tea about the necklace and how he's failing at being a decent person. Agate tells him to stop being weird and just ask Karin where she got it so he can buy a new one. Or he could just get her something nice that isn't a direct copy, which actually sounds like a plan. Nick gets a sudden burst of energy and heads to the market to find a gift. He runs into Karin at a food stall, probably because she's always hungry. She offers him a bite of something, but neglects to mention it's basically molten lava. He burns his mouth, she laughs at his pain, and suddenly the awkward vibes are gone. They end up having a normal conversation for once, just enjoying the fact that they aren't currently dying. After their snack, Karin tells him to stop stressing about the necklace. She actually feels lighter without that dead weight around her neck. They keep the good times rolling until they head back to their favorite dive bar. Surprisingly, the regulars actually like them now, treating them like they finally belong in this dump. The squad kicks back, drinks some beers, and actually looks like they enjoy each other's company. They're slowly turning into a real team, and not just because they're all equally broke. Karin's doing magic tricks for the table when a guild worker shows up and asks for a private word. She's got a special mission that sounds like it'll actually pay the rent. They need to dive into the labyrinth of bonds and bring back the sword of bonds for some high-ranking lady. Naturally, the group sees the dollar signs and signs up immediately. Nick asks for a description of the sword so they don't bring back a rusty butter knife by mistake. He also demands a map and an ironclad contract because he's learned his lesson about trust the hard way. He wants everything in writing before they risk their lives. Once the paperwork is done, they head into the dungeon. But this place looks more like a modern office building than a creepy cave. It's got sleek walls, automatic lighting, and basically feels like it was designed by an overpriced architect. To make it creepier, there are cameras everywhere, and someone is definitely watching them like a reality TV show. They don't notice the cameras, but Nick finds a hidden door at a dead end while the mysterious observer watches his every move. They walk through and enter a room that's definitely not on the map. Nick wants to keep going, but Tiana stops him. She uses her magic radar to check for traps, because this place screams death trap. She can tell someone is hiding their magical presence, which is never a good sign. They move cautiously and finally find the pedestal where the sword is supposed to be. Suddenly, the lights flare up, and some random guy starts talking from the shadows. Nobody cares about the voice though, because they're staring at a sword hilt that's missing its actual blade. The voice says it's probably a magic weapon that builds a blade out of the user's energy or something equally nerdy. Nick tells the narrator to shut up so he can actually focus on the job. Then the hilt itself starts talking, claiming that it is the legendary sword they've been looking for. The group is understandably skeptical because swords don't usually have opinions. The sword doubles down, saying she's the sacred sword of bonds and she's a pretty big deal. She claims she only works for people with justice and friendship, but Nick just wants to turn her in for the reward money. The sword is offended that she's being treated like a pawn shop find. She offers them her power instead. She'd rather be used in a real fight than sit on a shelf gathering dust as a trophy. The second Nick grabs her, the security system goes into full lockdown mode. The whole room shakes, and a giant golem spawns in to kick them out permanently. Tiana starts blasting it with crystal spells immediately. Karin tries to rush it, but the golem pulls a "no you" and reflects the spells right back at them. Karin manages to trip it for a second, but then the golem sends her flying across the room. Zen rushes to heal her, while Nick steps up to draw the monster's aggro. Nick realizes they're outmatched and orders a retreat, knowing they're about to get turned into paste if they stay. Nick keeps swinging, but it's like hitting a brick wall with a wet noodle. Desperate, he asks the sword if she actually does anything useful. The sword tells him to stop being a coward and use her like she's meant to be used. Without missing a beat, Nick pulls out the sword like a pro. He pumps the blade full of energy and slices off the golem's hand, but he knows one limb isn't going to win this fight. The golem pulls a fast one and punts Nick straight back into the hole he crawled out of. With the squad left in the lurch, Tiana freezes the monster to buy a few seconds so she can go look for their missing leader. But the creature is basically built different, thawing out instantly and showing off its total immunity to her magic. She realizes she can't kill it, she can only hope to make it move like it's stuck in traffic. So she just keeps spamming the freeze button to slow it down. Zen stays on her heels as they both rush toward the spot where Nick took his tumble. Tiana finds some blood trails and finally spots him buried under a mountain of rocks. He's literally stuck under a pile of debris like a bad construction accident. The two start digging him out immediately, trying to find a way to escape this mess. While they're digging, Nick actually apologizes again for breaking Curran's necklace, but he realizes that breaking it was actually the best thing he could have done for her. That necklace was basically a chain to a past she needed to dump in the trash anyway. They finally reach him, and Nick starts talking about the sword's weird vibes again. However, the whole team is having a massive mental breakdown at the same time. Tiana admits to Zen that she's hitting a wall and she's been hiding her real fears. Just when the credits were about to roll on their lives, the sword glows and bonds with Nick, giving them the power-up needed to delete the golem. After the dust settles, Nick hands the sword over to the lady and her assistant to get paid. But they notice a new kid named Kazuna is suddenly part of the group, and they all start chatting about the dungeon like it was a fun field trip. The crew realizes the sword they gave the lady was actually just a high-quality knockoff. Turns out that room was full of replicas, which is great for business but bad for security. And then they figure out the actual sword can turn into a human boy. The sword is literally Kazuna, which is a weird way to live. Back at the house, they split the loot so everyone can go blow it on their personal vices. Nick gives Kazuna a cut of the cash and tells him to go live his best life. Kazuna tries to explain the rules, but Nick is already checked out and planning to hit up an agate concert. He even tries to drag Kazuna along for the fanboy experience. But the kid thinks idols are mid and decides to stay home and read a book instead. Kazuna asks Tiana about her night, and she's off to the races to lose all her money again. So the gambling addicts head out to the track to find some trouble. As they walk, Kazuna thinks about how he spent centuries in that hole waiting for a ride. Tiana decides his stage name is now Mocha because Kazuna is too suspicious for a talking sword undercover. They have a blast betting on horses, and the next day the whole squad meets for lunch. They notice Mocha is actually thriving now that he isn't stuck on a pedestal all day. Nick brings out a safe for Curran so she can stop carrying their life savings in her pockets. He hands her the key and gives Tiana an abacus so she can pretend to be good at math. Now they've got a system, which is honestly the scariest thing about this group. They count the coins and realize they are still incredibly poor. But Nick hits them with a pep talk about working harder to earn more shiny things. The story shifts back to Tiana, packing her bags after getting the boot from school. Her teacher gives her a lighter as a parting gift, which is a bit dark. Turns out he got fired too because of the drama she was involved in. The teacher is surprisingly chill about it, telling her they are both finally free from that dump. He tells her to live it up and not forget her training. Tiana is confused why he's so happy about losing his career and his pension. He just laughs like a maniac, leaving her feeling guilty for ruining both their lives at once. He promises to tell her the truth about her origin, but then he just keeps laughing. It's hard to take life advice from a guy who's clearly lost his marbles. As she leaves the campus, Tiana wakes up in the present day. It was just a nightmare disguised as a memory from her old life. She misses the old days, but she knows she's got to deal with the current mess. The rest of the squad wakes up too, all having flashbacks to their own personal disasters. Nick even dreamed about his ex and the time he wasn't completely miserable. It's weird that they all had the same bad vibes dreams at the exact same time. Mocha was actually creeping on their memories with a telepathic spell and then teaches them all how to talk with their minds during lunch. Mocha shows off by deleting an orc using a fancy move that drains everyone's mana bars. Then she explains she was basically a student of some ancient legendary swordsman. Nick says thanks and offers to buy everyone a meal to celebrate not dying. The group declines because they'd rather go back to their individual bad habits. Nick walks in to eat alone but spots his ex, Claudine, sitting right there. She's already working on her next victim, trying to scam some new guy out of his gold. Nick shuts her down and exposes her game, making her storm out like a spoiled brat. The new guy realizes he was about to get taken for everything he's worth. The group ignores the drama and finally sits down to order some actual food. After lunch, Nick brings up a new job involving picking flowers, expensive, deadly flowers. Claudine comes back with a bodyguard to act tough and ruin the vibe again. Her guy, Subbo, says she needs the cash to pay off a local gang called the Iron Tigers. Subbo gets heated and says they should settle this with their fists like civilized people. Nick accepts the duel and they head outside to the parking lot. But right before the hitting starts, Subbo suddenly turns into a totally different person. She says she's sorry for being a jerk and thanks Nick for stopping Claudine from ruining another life. Apparently, Claudine has been running this scam on everyone in town for a while now. The gang is broke and desperate, so they've been honeypotting young dudes for their loot. Subbo knows she's a villain in this story and tells Nick he can do whatever he wants to her. She even tries to recruit him for a heist, which is a bold move after a death threat. The squad is ticked off, and Nick just punches her in the face to show he's not interested in the offer. He goes for a follow-up, but she dodges it like she's actually had some training. Then some other henchman pulls a sword on him because things weren't messy enough. Suddenly, a Kramen rolls up to play hero and defend Nick's honor. Then the rest of the crew shows up with the old lady and her sidekick in tow. A Kramen wants to fight Nick again, but with a weird twist. He proposes a math duel, which is the nerdiest way to settle a grudge in history. The old lady explains that this isn't just about addition and subtraction. It's a 10-round cage match where you also have to do algebra. The fighting only stops when someone solves the math problem correctly. If you're bad at math, you just keep getting punched in the face indefinitely. And of course, the math problems get harder as you lose more brain cells. They pull names out of a box to see who has to be the designated math nerd. Curran gets picked for Nick's team, and she's already sweating because she's not exactly a scholar. She's terrified she's going to get Nick killed with a long division error. Nick gives her a "you got this" talk that he definitely doesn't believe. On the other side, Claudine is the one answering the questions for Team Scumbag. The group spends the next week trying to teach a dragon girl how to do basic math. One of them gets distracted by a girl at the bar, but Nick tries to keep everyone focused on the mission. He sends Zen out to play spy and figure out what the other team is planning. Zen's research involves drinking with local girls until they spill all the secrets. He finds out the rivals are using magic gems to cheat and communicate during the test. But Nick's group has their own plan to counter the cheaters. He tells Curran to just act natural and wait for the signal to pull the rug out from under them. The big day arrives and the mathlete battle finally begins. Round 1 starts and Curran is already looking like she's seen a ghost. She's so worried about Nick getting hurt that she can't even count her fingers. She panics and makes a bunch of mistakes, which means Nick gets to stand there and take a beating. Nick dodges what he can, but he's basically a human punching bag, while Claudine cleans up the second round too. Nick basically becomes a human punching bag yet again. Curran starts losing her mind, confessing she's hit her limit and feels like garbage seeing Nick take hits for her math fails. He manages to gaslight her into finishing the job. While he's bleeding, the rest of the squad preps to catch Claudine and her circus act in the act. They were obviously cheating using magic Bluetooth gems. Round 3 kicks off, and Nick buys time with his face while Curran struggles with numbers. The team starts sniffing out the magical signals like bloodhounds on a trail. Tiana smells the rat and calls for a rule change, suggesting they solve all the problems at once to ruin the rhythm. The crowd loves the drama, and the judges dump the whole test on Claudine like a surprise final exam. Claudine starts SOSing her accomplice, but Tiana's magical radar is already locked onto her frequency like a heat-seeking missile. She tracks down the guy feeding her answers, and the squad pounces, bagging him like a Thanksgiving turkey. Nick sees the trap closing and decides to keep the monologue going for the aesthetic. He calls out Claudine for her missing partner in crime. She starts making up excuses, but she can tell by Nick's smirk that the jig is officially up. She panics and tries to speed dial help, but the old lady reminds her that cheating gets you disqualified and probably worse. The accomplice gets hauled in front of the judge, and the verdict is served cold and fast. The Operation Nerd Rage was a total success. The rival squad gets dismantled and tossed in the slammer with Claudine. Claudine cries enough to fill a swimming pool, but nobody is buying it. Later, the winners hit a restaurant to brag, even if half of them still don't understand how math works. The group's sheer spite was enough to pull off the perfect plan. But of course, a quiet dinner is too much to ask for. Claudine, while being processed by the guards, summons a sword she definitely sold her soul for. She looks ready to go full John Wick to escape, making the knight and everyone else rethink their career choices. While waiting for Tiana, her cat shows up looking for some revenge on Nick for some reason. The furball has undergone a serious glow-up since they last saw it. It bonded with a sword and turned into a nightmare-fueled raid boss. The cat monster invades the casino, sniffing out Nick's suffering like it's premium catnip. People try to stop it, but it's like trying to stop a freight train with a feather. The beast corners Tiana and makes things very personal. It threatens to delete her if she doesn't lead it straight to Nick. Tiana doesn't hesitate to play dirty. She knows cats can't resist a good laser pointer trick, distracts the beast and makes a break for it. But since it's an evolved cat, it heals instantly and puts Tiana back on the menu. She draws her steel and prays she doesn't mess this up. Right as things look bleak, Nick rolls in with the Sword of Bonds. He steps in to break up the party. But then the swords start talking to each other. It turns out these two blades have been beefing for centuries, like a bad celebrity rivalry. The drama causes the sword to dump its power into Nick, turning him into a terrifying monster thing. He tries to bond with Tiana for a power boost, but he loses the driver's seat of his own body and starts leveling the casino. The sword's ego says it just wanted to annoy him, but the property damage is already through the roof. The blade decides today is a good day to settle the score once and for all. The other sword, Sabo, actually grows a conscience and stops the violence, leading to a sword-on-sword argument. Nick takes the opening, freezes Sabo in a block of ice, and follows up with some heavy artillery. Sabo busts out of the ice using its cheat codes. But the wielder has finally had enough and starts regretting their life choices. Nick ends the fight by using anti-magic playing cards, which is a weird but effective way to nerf a legendary weapon. Sabo hits the deck, surrounded by guards but oddly thankful that the nightmare is over. Later, Nick visits the cell to mention that Tiana sealed the evil sword away for good. Surprisingly, nobody died in the casino riot, and Nick walks away without a thank you or a tip. Next day, Nick is out for a jog in the woods, probably to sweat out the trauma. He hears a girl's voice but sees nobody, which usually means he's losing it. He blames it on the cardio-induced hallucinations and keeps moving. The voice sounds suspiciously like Agate cheering him on. Then he starts having a full mental conversation with her while he's running. Agate pops up behind him and tells him to stop running before he has a literal heart attack. He jumps out of his skin and decides to take a seat and chat. She asks if he's got better things to do than run circles in the dirt. He admits he's just running away from his own disappointment. Nick wonders if his "I'm a failure" vibe is showing on the outside. Agate thinks he's got potential, but he's clearly drowning in insecurity. She says she's not losing any sleep over his midlife crisis. He claims he's fine, but she hits him with a "how does it feel to kill someone" reality check. Nick tries to play it off like it's no big deal and changes the subject fast. Agate starts talking about what actually makes her happy for once. She's glad he's not a total mess anymore and brings up the ticket she gave him. She confesses she was terrified and confused when she handed that ticket over. At the show, she felt the same way until she realized she was actually helping him, which is Idol 101. She mentions that some fans get a little too obsessed, and she's glad he's not a stalker. That would be a deal breaker for their weird friendship. Nick admits that without the idol stuff, he probably would have become a career criminal, so thanks for that. Agate sighs. Nick gets offended, and they bicker like an old married couple. She says talking to him makes her feel like her job isn't a total waste of time. Nick can tell she's hiding something big behind that idle smile. Apparently, she's gone completely radio silent on the public. Flashback time to before she was a star, back when she was just a regular girl. Her real name was Abel, and she sang in a dive bar to support her boyfriend's questionable lifestyle. She was singing for tips until some guy told her she was too good for this dump. Abel agreed because she was tired of smelling like stale beer. The guy was Joseph Coleman, a big-shot producer at Yearly Productions. He hands her a card and asks if she wants to be the next big thing. She's stunned, but the bar manager interrupts to warn her about creeps. The manager, Donnie, clarifies he's the brains of the operation, not the owner. Joseph repeats his offer, promising to turn her into an idol. Donnie immediately starts asking about the overhead and the paycheck. Abel is lost, but Joseph talks about making dreams come true, which works every time. She accepts a ticket to a show, acting all shy like she doesn't want the fame. Joseph leaves her to deal with Donnie, who's already counting the imaginary money. She sees the idols on stage and decides that she wants a piece of that action. She realizes she's actually pretty ambitious and wants to be popular. After the show, she and 2 other girls sign their lives away to Joseph. They all get fancy new stage names based on shiny rocks, topaz, amber and agate. But things with Donnie start getting toxic real fast because he's always asking for a loan. Their relationship becomes a black hole of financial and emotional debt. She promises to pay him back once she finds a sugar daddy or a better job. She's hiding in the back of the bar when a stray dog catches her eye. The dog runs away just as the sky starts looking like it's about to cry. She looks at the clouds and worries about Donnie's mounting bar tab. She realizes she's being used, but she's too deep in it to quit now. She spends her last few bucks and realizes Donnie's dream is actually a nightmare. She looks at the flyer for the event Donnie organized for his little idol trio. Abel mentions there's going to be a weird mix of people and they need more tables. But he tells her she'll have a stage to herself to enchant the crowd while he cooks the books. He's hyped, but she's already checked out, and that's when she saw Nick for the first time. She's grabbing a drink when she overhears some classic breakup drama at a nearby table. Some girl named Claudine is dumping her boyfriend just for being a swordsman. The guy follows her out because it's raining, and he's clearly a glutton for punishment. And that's the meet cute of our 2 favorite disaster humans. She tells Donnie he's going to be rich and not to sweat the small stuff. He agrees to meet up in person to discuss the profits. At the casino, he finds a lucky lady, but then Donnie starts actually winning. The girl turns into a total gambling shark and cleans everyone out in record time. The guy could barely even twitch. What really tripped him out was how the goddess kept staring him down, making him realize she picked that table specifically for him. He only had eyes for beating her, and once he finally pulled it off, she just laughed and pulled a Batman, vanishing in a puff of smoke. As it turns out, the goddess had a sword that could basically control the weather. She turned the entire room into a walk-in freezer in 2 seconds, which definitely killed the vibe and terrified the crowd. Donnie found a discarded card and realized this mysterious goddess was actually his own guardian angel. After the whole mess, Joseph decided to bail Donnie out so he could go back to living a quiet, boring life. But that pretty much sealed the deal on his relationship with Agate. She told him to play it cool and act like they were total strangers from now on. After he finished talking with Donnie, he apologized to Belle but made sure she knew she was still a nobody to him. Belle stepped in though, stopping any of the unofficial threats from getting out of hand. Her being a total sweetheart and her big dreams actually caught them both off guard, even if they were being real. Even when she only saw his bank account, Belle knew Donnie wasn't just a walking wallet. But having him around right then was just a one-way ticket to sad town for her. She was officially done with gambling and losing her shirt. Donnie just chuckled, noting that you can't really put a leash on luck. Because if you could, everyone would be a winner and the house would go broke. Joseph tried to cut him off, but Donnie kept going, insisting he wasn't worth the trouble or the price tag. The offer was solid, but the bet was locked in. He'd just have to sit tight until the cards were all on the table. When Agate finally made her solo comeback, the fans came out in droves and Nick was acting like a total fanboy. As soon as the lights hit, Agate apologized to the crowd for making them worry about her. She did a bit of crowd work, asking what they thought she was doing while she was off the grid. Since their guesses were pretty lame, she told them about meeting a white-haired goddess during the casino riot. The goddess appeared out of nowhere, wrecked the bad guy, and vanished without even leaving a business card. Agate then dropped the bomb that she was the legendary paladin, which blew everyone's minds, especially Nick's. She explained she just wanted to help people and spread some courage, just like that goddess did for her. She played a song dedicated to the paladin, pouring her soul into the lyrics, and Nick was so mesmerized he forgot how to blink. The other idols hopped on stage for a huge finale, while Agate was in her own head, thinking about how life is more than just hitting notes and navigating the mess of human emotions. The story then shifts to a paladin who wanted an idol to be the ultimate hype man for everyone fighting the good fight. Back in the woods, Nick was hydrating after a workout. But he started hearing Agate's voice again and tried to tell himself he was just dehydrated. He figured his brain was just fried from the exercise. But even after the concert, her voice was stuck on repeat in his head, making him wonder if he was actually leveling up as a person. Agate, realizing he was a sensitive guy with a lot on his plate, gave him some free life coaching. That's when that same dog from before decided to make a cameo. He picked it up and told Nick that animals have their own kind of strength, reminding him that he just needs to keep moving forward, just like he does when he's grinding through problems. Switch to another scene where the survivors are hanging out. Mocha is getting all worked up over a tabloid story about a ghost named Pinkman who snatches kids in their sleep. He's totally invested and shows the group, mentioning that Labyrinth City is the kind of place where you can basically fly. Everyone starts talking big about what they'd do if they ran into a real threat. But Nick tells them to cool it, insisting the whole thing is just an urban legend for kids. Mocha cuts in, asking if there's any proof or if anyone has actually lived to tell the tale. Nick tells him to stop believing everything he sees on the internet, but Mocha is already planning a ghost hunting trip. Right when he mentions the ghost, a girl eavesdropping outside introduces herself as Olivia Taylor, a journalist who's clearly looking for a scoop. Mocha geeks out, saying she's a huge fan of Olivia's magazine and has been a subscriber forever. Nick has to keep him in check, reminding him he literally just found that magazine in the trash. Mocha doubles down on the weirdness, and when Olivia talks about her drama, she mentions something about straw dolls and leaves it at that. Then Zen just blabs out her real name, which makes everyone in the room incredibly awkward and nervous. Luckily, Olivia just takes it as a compliment, though she's clearly a bit of a klutz, stumbling around and proving she was totally caught off guard. She thanks them and says she's in town to dig up all the dirt on Labyrinth City. Later that night, Nick is wandering around drunk when he sees a girl standing alone in the shadows. He follows her down an alley, but she suddenly yanks him inside a random house. Meanwhile, Nick and Mocha head out to catch another Agate performance. Mocha is loving it until his spider sense tingles and he knows something is wrong. They both bolt back to the scene of the crime. In the alley, Mocha is the only one who can actually see the ghost's reflection and starts swinging. Nick can't see a thing, but he's finally a believer in Pinkman now that he's being hunted by it. The ghost bails, but not before trying to play a game of hook and chain with them. Mocha dodges like a ninja, keeping the girl and the ghost from actually trading blows. He's basically her personal bodyguard now. They head to a safe house they call the Net to regroup. The group grills the girl, and she just says it was Pinkman and that her mom wasn't crazy after all, explaining she's been trying to catch him every night. The survivors actually feel for her and her mom, finally admitting that the ghost isn't just a story for kids. Out of nowhere, the kid asks for $100 to be their apprentice. Nick tries to shut it down, but Zen tells her she's too young and needs to wait until she's 15 to start her training. He tells her to stop playing with fire before she gets burned. Mocha is fuming, wanting to personally punch the ghost for kidnapping people and being a general jerk. She decides she's going to catch him herself, and the others reluctantly follow. They feel bad about the mess they made, so they start digging for info and demand a bounty on the ghost's head. They hit the guild, but they aren't exactly rolling out the red carpet. The receptionist tells them they don't give the good jobs to rookies with no resume, and Nick realizes they should have prepped more. Eventually, she gives them a lead on a guy named Hardy, who has a pretty fat bounty on his head. When she says the group's name, a bunch of local meatheads start talking trash. Tiana tells them that being a hater isn't actually a job requirement for bounty hunters. One guy loses his cool, telling them that noobs like them should stick to hunting garden pests. His buddy tries to settle him down, but Tiana is adamant that they are going to bring Hardy in. The guy decides to put his money where his mouth is and bets against them. Tiana, feeling spicy, bets a massive stack on their victory, which shuts everyone up real quick. The guy ends up gambling his entire life savings on their failure. She tells them they better start saving up for when she comes back to collect. The squad heads to the sketchiest part of town, which is basically the headquarters for every crime imaginable. They're fairly sure the guild didn't send them on a wild goose chase. They meet the doorman, who tells them he's never seen their ugly mugs before. Nick says they don't need friends, just info on what's been going down lately in the neighborhood. The man mentions a creature died recently, and some guy named Greg has a small army with him. But the weirdest part was some little girl showing up with a death wish. Nick says thanks and keeps it moving into the darkness. The doorman tells them they're making a huge mistake, but nobody knows who the girl is, just that she's a total shocker. They find a place that smells like a dumpster and regret, stumbling into a group of gang members. Before the bad guys can even blink, the survivors have the leader in a headlock and he's singing like a canary. Before they leave, they ask the thief if he actually enjoys being a bottom feeder. He says his life is a series of zeros, and he can't even sleep without one eye open, which they actually relate to. They take his relaxing herbs as payment and tell him he should probably find a better hobby. As they're leaving, he warns them that the guy they're looking for is a runner and will vanish if they blink. The man actually thanks them for the heads up. They reach the house and Mocha spots their target immediately. They bust upstairs and catch him mid-hookup with some woman. Curran starts counting the bounty money in her head already. The guy tries to jump out the window, but Mocha is already there waiting to catch him. Right as they're about to haul him away, a guy asks why they're kidnapping a sick person. The target begs for help, and Nick realizes they've run into Nagapa. The guy asks who they are, since they don't look like the usual collection of idiots. But Nick is pretty sure this guy isn't just some regular neighborhood priest either. Nick asks about the guy's crimes, and finds out he's done pretty much everything except kill someone. Nagapa says they can take him since he heals bodies, not reputations, and he's about to head out anyway because of some plague. Nick thinks the whole situation is a bit of a disaster. The guy is either going to get the chair or live out his days in a cozy cell. He tells the guy to stay quiet and just come along for the ride. The priest nods, thinking about how he can still help sick people in the big house, but Mocha brings up the Pinkman ghost again, and the priest suddenly acts like he's never heard of him. Word on the street was there's this weirdo journalist who lures children in with candy like a low-budget villain. Once they hit the guild, Nick ignored Tiana's complaining and blew the entire budget on a round of drinks for the house, just to prove a point. The next day, they finally handed over the bounty on Haley, along with some tea on Pinkman. But the evidence turned out to be a bunch of glowing testimonials from people who actually liked the guy. The guild owner told them to quit playing detective with ghost stories and stick to real jobs, reminding them they were hunting a fraud, not a legend. The crew started debating what they'd actually do if they met a real monster, but Nick shut that down fast before they got too depressed. He kept insisting it was just a campfire story, and they should stop overthinking the supernatural stuff. The bartender suggested the survivors should probably just look for the weirdos who spend way too much time talking to kids. That led to Nick spotting the whole gang, Olivia, Mopa and the rest, having a little huddle at a table. He started connecting the dots, especially after remembering how Curran handles herself in a fight. Super fast and handy with chains. He also thought back to the day Olivia literally tackled him into the pavement. She's surprisingly heavy and a bit of a klutz. Nick had a quick laugh before ordering Curran and Tiana to seal off the exits like a SWAT team. He cornered Olivia, deciding it was time for some blunt questions and even blunter answers. She got defensive immediately, and the other girls cleared out to let them have their moment. Nick demanded to know where she was 2 nights ago during the kidnapping. She played it cool, claiming she was just undergoing a standard interrogation. Eventually, she realized the jig was up and spilled the tea. She went through her boring daily routine of eating, working, and trying to survive. But when Nick asked her point blank if she was the one behind the Pinkman mask, Olivia just went stone-faced and tried to play the innocent journalist card one last time. Suddenly, she kicked the table so hard it hit the rafters and probably broke a light. She used the chaos to dive through a hole and make her escape. Next thing we know, Zen is on the floor behind bars, crying for help and questioning his life choices. He was so out of it that he couldn't even tell if he was awake or just having a fever dream. After the big escape, the squad gathered back at Red's place to figure out their next move. Nick was coming to terms with the fact that they were right all along, while Mopa was having an existential crisis over her own writing. Suddenly, Red walked in with Harda, the mother of that girl Riani. Nick recognized her as a heavy hitter from a legendary adventuring squad. She's basically a master chef and a warrior, and she's been out hunting thieves while everyone else was just trying to find lunch. She told Nick she'd known him forever, apologized for her daughter being a brat, and told him to stay safe since she was done looking for him. But Riani wasn't having it and jumped into the conversation, much to her mom's confusion. The kid actually asked to be Nick's apprentice, which was the last thing anyone expected. Nick told her she'd basically just be in the way and ruin his vibe. He admitted he's terrified of teenage girls, thanks to the ex-girlfriend who basically framed him and sent him to prison for years. He had protected her back then, but he figured anyone with a pulse would have done the exact same thing. He confessed that the kid gave him a spark of hope that maybe he could move past his trauma. The mom totally misread the room and told him he wasn't allowed to marry her daughter. They both immediately clarified that marriage was definitely not on the table. Nick thought it was hilarious, but Harder promised to end him if he even thought about it. Everyone had a good laugh at the death threat. Regarding the ghost, Harder said they should just give up because defeating Pinkman was a pipe dream. But the squad wasn't about to quit as long as kids were still going missing in the night. The Sun Knights might not care, but Nick thought it was trash that someone was using an urban legend to cover their crimes. He realized Harder had been using the rumor herself to bait adventurers, but she was retiring from the scam to focus on her kid. Nick asked for a crash course in archery to take the villain down. Harder started the training by feeding them soup, because apparently you can't save the world on an empty stomach, but magic was the real key. They quickly realized they had zero talent for the mystic arts, which really deflated their egos. She tossed a lighter to Curran, telling him to just say the magic word and make fire. Curran failed miserably and looked like he wanted to punch the lighter. Then it was Nick's turn to try. He closed his eyes, concentrated, and actually managed to light the thing, shocking the group. Harder explained the lighter was just a test of potential, and then showed off by making a flame that could probably melt steel. And with that, the real training finally started. Later that night, Nick was camping out in an alley waiting for their target. When she showed up, he tried to punch her in the gut, but she dodged him like she was made of air. Nick asked Lion if the girl had some kind of invisibility cloak or a cheat code. Lion said she did, but you could break the spell just by saying her name out loud. They tracked a lead to the suburbs, where a kid was reportedly dragged toward the local cemetery. The team realized they were being watched by something in the shadows. Suddenly, the ambush began and they were all under fire. The girl was moving so fast she was a blur, and she actually bent a solid iron bar with a single punch. Zura tried his best move but got swatted aside like a common housefly. The girl admitted she was the one they were looking for, but swore she wasn't the one kidnapping the kids. She claimed some guy named Pissador was the one actually leaping across the rooftops at night. They eventually found the body of a girl who had been used as a human shield for some bigger secret. It turned out she was part of some twisted experiment to cure the Yellow Devil disease. They found out the hunter was digging through the trash, looking for any clues on who was running the show. By nightfall, they finally had the main suspect in their sights. A massive brawl broke out immediately. When they got a good look at him, they realized the villain was actually the hospital doctor. The guy stomped so hard he broke the floor, revealing that the whole place was a giant trap. With no way out, the doctor decided it was time for a classic villain monologue. He admitted to snatching kids because he was desperate to find a cure for the plague. He had zero regrets and said he'd do it all again if it meant getting results. He tossed the dragon woman aside and took out the mage, leaving only Zen to hold the line. Zen was shaking in his boots until a book appeared out of nowhere and kicked the doctor in the face. The doctor fought back, grabbing blades with his bare hands and using gravity magic to mess with the physics of the room. He made the girl's eyes blade, thinking he had finally won the day. But Zen found his spine, jumped back into the fight, and helped the group break out of the trap. Even then, they weren't out of the woods yet. Nick landed a hit so hard it literally buried his foot in the pavement. The doctor realized he was beat and decided it was time to clock out. However, he was already on death's door and knew his time was up anyway. He told them to just leave him there because saving him was a waste of resources. His final words were a hope that the group actually learned something from this nightmare. Later on, the adventurers sat around thinking about how they actually made it out alive. The story then gives us a final look into Nick's tragic backstory. After bandits wiped out his family, he was saved and trained by a man who made him the fighter he is today. But that same man eventually kicked him out, and Nick's been chasing the thief who stole his dragon egg ever since. His friends reminded him that he doesn't have to carry that baggage by himself anymore. They suspect the doctor was working with some mysterious guy named Whitebeard, so they all agreed to hunt down their legendary enemy while trying to live somewhat normal lives. And that is how this crazy story finally comes to a close.